pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence.
Take a moment to remember the 7 police officers and 5 firefighters that have passed since our last board meeting.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Did you go?
All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and probably the first order of business is to thank Chief and the staff for the new chairs that we're sitting in. They were long in coming, but totally appreciate that they're here.
Yes.
So, thank you. Also, we're going to adjust the agenda due to members' time schedules. Let us get right into the budget workshop for our 2025 budget, and that will be headed up by Gabe Woodruff.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Chief, do you want to start anything off on the budget, or we didn't talk about this?
Yeah. No, I love talking budget. So what you're gonna see tonight is the aggregate inputs from all the division heads, and this is unwashed. So this is just, hey, perfect world. This is all the asks for this year, and then I would argue this is kind of this is the top of the top. Now from here, any direction from the board tonight will be taken and brought back to staff. In addition to that, we'll be meeting the next couple of weeks with JVG to drill down, clean up, fine tune a lot of stuff, and then start our normal process of honing down the budget. But this is the, again, as I said, expected top of the tier unless we get some unexpected surprise, which we've got most of the numbers in. So this should be top of the top for this year's ask. And like I said, direction from the board and then further review. I've yet to sit down and really drill down with the division heads purposely. You know, we went over all this stuff, but independently, and now we're going to come together after this and we'll work together and prioritize needs over others, you know, divisional needs. So.
Thank you, Chief. And to kind of follow up, Chief, and that's why we're kind of going to talk about it more as an aggregate today. And you'll see when we get to the last slide, we talk about where we're at in the budget process. We're very early on. We just got the budget request from staff, and so we want to let the board know kind of where we're at from a top line number right now, and then we'll work from there. So jumping into the presentation, again, as kind of mentioned, update on the process. You know, the significant budget numbers, the budget schedule, and then, you know, kind of Chief said that direction from the board. I know you're not going to have a lot of data right now, but it's more of a, you know, we don't support any tax increase, or, you know, tax what you need, and not that you would ever do that, but kind of that direction of where, you know, you want to see us take this budget this year as we begin to work through it. So again, kind of recap from some of the stuff Sarah discussed last month. We are looking at a 4.83% growth in assessed value. That's $940,000 at our current tax rate. The good news is that I'll say as we start kind of getting into this and stuff is based on kind of some preliminary placeholders we have in there, budget requests, and actually savings we've realized over this last year and a half with the I shouldn't use the word turnover, but with the retirements of our senior people, we're not far from being funded with maintaining the tax rate. You know, with no cuts. Right now, if we wanted to balance without with a tax rate increase, we'd be looking at about bumping up about 4 cents on our tax rate to balance with making no adjustments. Again, assuming some of the assumptions we have on the wage scale and things like that, and health insurance and workers' comp come in line with what we're projecting right now. Our non-levy revenues overall, year over year, and next month, we're going to have a very detailed line-by-line overview or dive into all of these. Not much movement year over year. We're going to pretty much hold ambulance revenue flat at 2.3 million. We had a bit of a slow month this month when I get in my finance report that you'll hear, but we're pretty much on track for budget. So, and our deflator from DHS, which is basically the automatic increase that we could apply for year over year based on inflation, is only 1.6% this year. So we're really not going to see much additional ambulance revenue from rate. The only way we'd see more is from volume in the next year. So really feeling being conservative on that revenue source and holding that flat. We did not have a very, very deployable wildland season this year. And so probably maybe as we look at the budget, considering lowering our wildland budget for next year, again, with the understanding to the board that that is a levy neutral item. The revenue and the expenditures related to that do not affect our tax levy and do not affect our M&O budget. So if we see more wildland deployments, we'll obviously see the additional revenue that will cover those expenditures. But whatever number we put in there just goes to fund our reserves as like a contingency line item for capital and financial reserves. Some of our other revenues that, are obviously driving that budget are telecom and communication rents. In addition, we have our prevention revenue. I know Chief Booth is, working on the fee schedule and getting some, so we can have something there. Our donation income, relatively small. We don't get a lot of donations. This past year, really the past 2 years, our investment income has been very good. We're projected to end this year with, we're already at $400,000 in interest income this year alone. With where the Fed's target is for inflation, where the economists are saying the Fed's going to more likely go through the rest of this year and into next year, I don't anticipate us continuing to see that level. So we probably won't raise our budget to match that, but we might split the difference on that and increase that capacity a little bit more and lessen any burden on the taxpayer to fund items within the budget next year. Any questions on our revenues at this point? Again, big takeaway, the two biggest revenues that we make that are guaranteed reoccurring revenue is our tax revenue and our EMS revenue. EMS revenue holding flat and potentially may able to hold tax rate flat, understanding though we're getting additional revenue from the taxpayer because of just the increase in assessed value.
The interest income you mentioned, what creates that interest income? What is it from?
So the majority of our money is housed with the county treasurer, and the county treasurer then takes that money and invests that money on behalf of all of the agencies within the county. And so it's really short-term interest income. They don't do any long-term investments. Statute restricts them from investing in equities. It's typically looking at CDs, money markets, and investment-grade bonds or municipal bonds.
Can you tell me the pros and cons of utilizing the amount of cash on hand that we have to subsidize various aspects of the budget in order to lower? Is that a practice you'll see, or probably a dangerous suggestion to do?
Yeah, so it definitely begins a slippery slope when you're using one-time money, meaning our cash in the bank, to fund ongoing expenses. Because what happens is those ongoing expenses don't go away, and the cash in the bank, if it's not getting replenished, if we're budgeting to spend that down, it's getting depleted. And then eventually we find ourselves in a situation where we have spent down all of our cash in the bank. And I mean, not to, point out some of the challenges within the fire district community, but that is the exact challenge that impacted some of our neighbors more recently than the past year. Now, we do want to make sure that we maintain a reasonable, fund balance overall. We don't want to be in a position where we're maintaining more cash reserves than what is necessary. I'll argue with some of our larger capital projects, i.e. fire stations, we don't have enough cash on hand to fund those today. So we are going to be using debt instruments to fund those projects. So the more cash we have, the less reliance we're going to have on debt instruments to fund our capital needs. So going into some of those budget numbers, again, we're looking at, right now, our PSPRS costs increased about 1.4%. And when I say 1.4%, I'm talking a contribution rate increase of 1.4%. Our ASRS decreased about 0.02%. That's a relatively minimal impact to us overall, just not only from a percentage, but from a percentage of our total payroll. So just that alone is going to be about $140,000 impact to the budget, just with that increase in our pension costs. Currently, we've got essentially a cost of living. We've always historically looked at the Social Security as our starting point, as our basis. That's at 3.2% for this year. If we went with just that, it would be about a $600,000 impact overall to the budget. However, this year, as the board's aware, we're actually looking at an overall wage and compensation study that will be incorporated into this budget and this presentation. And working with Chief Coyle, some preliminary numbers that we're looking at is about $200,000 impact on some of those proposed changes. Health insurance is another one of our big numbers that's, kind of up in the air right now. I know there's some discussion over which carrier, do we want to switch carriers? And so until some of that decision gets made, we're really at a holding point on that. One of the other big expenditures that we realize as a district is our workers' compensation. Over the last 5 years, we've averaged about an $80,000 increase, with last year being one of our lower years. So again, Chief could probably tell us more about Securus, but my understanding is, kind of they're going more to an experience-based model. And so depending on our actual claims experience will impact whether we see I'm hearing anywhere from a decrease of 5% up to an increase in 5%. And to put that in terms of dollars, we currently are budgeting about $900,000 in workers' comp. So if we saw a 5% increase, we're talking, about a $40,000 impact to workers' comp next year, which is obviously a large number, but a lot better than what we've seen, historically over those last 5 years. Chief, is there anything else you want to add on that?
That's accurate.
Okay.
I can answer any further questions about the comp.
Okay. And then the last piece, as Chief mentioned, is we did get everybody's budget requests in. And this is based on kind of those operational needs. Not only are we looking at continuing to maintain what we're doing today, I know some people have requested enhancements within their divisions. We've loaded all of those in, and we're sitting at about $550,000 in additional costs just based on those budget requests that have been received. And, as Chief mentioned, we're at the early stage on that. We just got the request, so we just got the shell built with those requests in there. We actually have a meeting that we're trying to schedule the first part of April with senior management to kind of go through and refine and, identify items that we definitely want to continue forward and bring forward in the budget presentation next month, or items that, management feels needs to be cut before it even kind of goes to the board presentation. And so if we're looking at kind of that status quo budget, that's kind of where I mentioned we're looking at overall, at that $570,000 increase overall in the budget. And so we'll see how, after the wage study gets finished, we identify where everybody fits within the new wage scale. We'll be able to refine those numbers. And I don't know the timing on that, if we'll have some of those concrete numbers for you next month, or if we'll still be working on projections on the employee side.
We should have.
Okay.
Well, I just ran some quick numbers in my head, which is always dangerous, but it looks to me like, based on what you said, we're out by about $500,000, a little over $500,000.
So what that number doesn't account for is we've got about $250,000 savings in salaries and benefits because of our senior people have left, have been replaced with lower individuals.
$1 were out.
Correct. But that was good math in your head.
I have one other request. Is it possible we can get a copy of these?
Yes. Yep, we tried to make some revisions, and actually, one piece of information I got before this board meeting that I didn't incorporate on the slide is our commercial insurance is another one of our kind of larger expenditures. We are looking at shopping, other carriers. I know one has elected not to bid. Another one is working through a bid, and we've obviously got our a current carrier. You know, we're gonna probably come forward with a 10% estimated increase, 6 to 12% estimated increase. We'll see where it kind of falls within there. And then from there, identify if the other carrier has a lower price, same price, and is it comparable services as well?
So, you know, this is very encouraging so far, because what you're saying is that it's highly likely we could leave our levy rate at the same.
Yes.
Because of the natural increase in assessed valuation that takes place versus the increase in our budget, that they balance each other off.
Yes. And one other thing that we usually talk about capital a little later on in the budget process, but I know, you know, over these last 2 years, we've had a very large number in there for our IT infrastructure, communication infrastructure. And Bob, working with others, has narrowed that number down significantly over what we've had in there as a placeholder, which will help add more funding and availability for stations, which again reduces our need to look at outside funding to fund some of our larger capital needs, which is, it's always good when we're able to fund ourselves within and not have that reliance on a third party to help keep things going.
Last year, I think cost of living was at 6.5 is what we settled in on.
But yes, I believe so.
And because that was down from what the recommended cost of living was, there were some subsidies that we backed up. With the 3.2 this year, do we see any need to have to build back, or part of the budget so attractive in that this is half of what it was last year?
So what I would say to that is I think the impetus this year is more to look at a true wage study and determine where the wage scale should be based on that, and not maybe necessarily have to look at specifically a COLA, is base it off of where should the wage scale be at, put it there, and then next year would be an evaluation based on a COLA. And so increases would be a percentage thereof within where people would fit within the wage and comp study.
Hey, Gabe, if I could add to that.
Yes.
So right now, the total compensation study is based on pre-July wages. So what the benefit is because we've, for the most part, kept up with COLAs, that I think that the people that didn't have significant changes to the job description, which is operations, will remain. I think we're going to be pretty close, but that's based on the pre-COLA numbers. So that would be the thing that we would normalize off of, and then have the conversation about COLAs is the way I see it going. It could end up exactly like Gabe just said, or it could end up differently, but it's kind of that opportunity to right the ship, if you will, and make sure that we're fairly compensating people so we retain the quality talent, and then looking forward to the decision about the COLA. Does that sound right, Gabe?
Yes, thank you, Chief.
Will we have the wage study in time?
That is the plan.
Yeah. Yes. April 15th is when we're supposed to have it by, and we've been facilitating getting them the information they need. They do have all the comparator agencies right now, and they have all of our job descriptions that have been updated. And so they're in the process of looking at, does a payroll specialist at another agency have a similar job requirements as ours, so they can start doing those comparisons. That is absolutely the goal.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
So looking into, obviously always the financial goals. I know I kind of continue to slide year over year, but, I want to remind the board, the community, everybody that our ultimate goal is to balance the budget while meeting the operational needs. The increase in expenditures doesn't end You know, operationally, salaries and wages and benefits, I love the Fed's target rate of 2%, and we're settling on 3%, and we're still seeing cost increases of 5% and 10% and 15%. I'm not sure where that 3% is occurring, but it's definitely not occurring at my son's pediatrician office. And so with that, we're always going to look at the growth, and I should even say maintenance in maintaining our operating capital funds. We do have a 10-year capital plan that we want to continue to maintain level funding into. If we can, again, add more funding and not need, again, that outside financing and fund ourselves, that would be great. Or if we could reduce the amount that we need to borrow because of where our fund balance has gone. We've done a good job of maintaining a healthy end leave liability balance. As we've seen these senior employees, finish out the drop, hit their 20, and want to move on, and ensure to them that there's the funding source within the district to make sure that those payouts that they, I know, have based their retirement plan on is available and the funds are there, and it doesn't impact our operating budget. And then finally, maintaining healthy financial reserves to where if we do need to go and see outside funding, we're in a strong position to get a strong credit rating. If we're in a position where we do have an economic downturn, we have the fund balance that we can do a plan to draw on to reduce the impact to the taxpayer in an economic downturn. So all of those reasons are why it's important in years like this and times like this is to take that savings and maintain it and build it and hold it, because it's not always, sunshine and rainbows. Eventually there is going to be an economic cycle, and we want to be prepared for that when it does come. And then finally, kind of the budget timeline and plan. And, as I mentioned, the budget requests were submitted to submitted to the supervisors on the 1st of March. We received them all by March 8th. I actually think we got them a little sooner than that. So here we're at the March 19th board workshop. Between this meeting and next meeting, staff will be working together diligently on refining numbers. Hopefully have the wage and comp study built into the budget. And so next month, when we come to the April board meeting, you'll have kind of the detailed P&L. Depending on where we're at with budget requests and things, we may do the supplemental worksheets as well, so you can see the full detail. And then we'll actually have true numbers to sit down and talk about and show you guys where everything's coming in at. And then finally, at the May board meeting, will be another workshop going through the full budget detail. And then at that meeting will be the request for tentative adoption. Then at that point, it still doesn't end our budget process. You guys as a board can always reduce the budget between May and June. We can't increase it without reposting. And then in June, we'll then hold the public hearing on budget and ask for final adoption.
Dave, I thought last year we had an extra workshop.
We did. And so I think after that April meeting, after the April meeting, if the board wishes to do that again, we could maybe schedule then at that point, if that works for the board.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, because otherwise we're getting the real details at the same time you're asking for tentative approval.
Okay.
So I think, having an extra meeting.
Yeah, be a good summary.
Yeah.
Yep, that works. Any other questions for Gabe?
Well, I just want to clarify. So between now and the next board meeting, you'd want a additional budget, or between April and May? Okay, that's what I assumed.
Yeah.
And it's more finalized.
Right. And that's what I said. If we get to the point where I feel like we've got a fairly final budget, like we've got the wage comp study done, we've made the cuts, and we're coming forward to with a flat tax rate, we'll probably print the full detail and give it all then at that time. And then you decide, hey, this is good, or no, let's actually schedule that workshop and dive into more detail. Or if we're not at that point, then definitely we'll get something scheduled.
Anything else for the workshop?
Any other directions for staff or questions?
Nothing else from the board? Gabe, or Chief, that I would just, for direction for finance to just keep working forward. Obviously lower is better, but then again, maybe lower isn't better. you know, let's make sure that we strive to get the best budget that we can for what our needs are. I guess would be the best way to,
Fiscally responsible financial growth.
very much. So, well, with that said, that'll be your direction, is just to keep working in that direction.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right, with the workshop, for the budget workshop complete, I'm gonna skip around because Gabe has another engagement, to go directly right to the finance report for February.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, members of the board, you have the February financial report in your packet. Starting off, tax levy revenue, we brought in $315,000 for the month. It was under what we projected by $231,000. That driver being we collected much higher in previous months this fiscal year. So when we get to year to date, you'll see we only have about a 0.5% variance from budget to actual, from a totality on the year to date on non-levy revenue, on tax levy revenue. Non-levy revenue was at $234,682. It was under budget by $33,000. As I mentioned, ambulance revenue was kind of the primary driver of that. Main reason being timing on runs to billing is what's driving that. So there was a delay in getting the PCR to the billing companies in the billing done by the close of the month for payments to come in, and so that's why we saw a delay there. That should pick up in March and April as those claims get processed. On the expense side, personnel still continues to trend under budget by $156,000. I will point out the seats you're sitting on drove the variance on buildings and land over by $13,000, $59,000. Yes, they are.
Long overdue.
And then we saw savings of both vehicles and equipment. Communication IT came right in budget, and managerial expenses were under budget by $15,684. So for totality for the month of February, our expenditures were $1,429,000, or under budget by $169,000. Year to date, we're through the month of February. So fiscal year is actually almost getting to the point where we're about wrapping up. 4 more financial reports, really 3.5 more actual months. Our total revenue is at $16,723,000, which is over budget by $21,000. Property tax collection is actually slightly under, as I mentioned before, about a 0.5% variance on property tax collection. Non-levy revenue is over. Year-to-date ambulance revenue is in line with budget, but our wildland revenue, as I mentioned, is under budget significantly from what we had projected. But that's being offset by that interest income that I was mentioning. So that's what's kind of keeping us above our revenue projections through year-to-date.
Hey, Gabe.
Good thing with yes, Chief.
Pardon me for interrupting. I just want to also point out that the personnel cost savings, because we were down 9 people in operations, is the same reason that we didn't get to send trucks out. So, you know, the yin and the yang of that part of it too.
Yes, thank you, Chief Coyle. And in addition to Chief Coyle's comment on the cost, that's what's driving our large variance on personnel. Why we're seeing a $957,000 savings in personnel is not only the full-time bodies, but as well as that wildland expense that we anticipated incurring for those deployments that we historically have done. Buildings and land year to date is over by about $16,000, which again is predominantly attributed to the decision to make new chair purchases. Vehicles and equipment is under budget by $35,000. Communication IT slightly over $42,000. And managerial is under by $79,000. In totality, we've expended $13,768,000, which is under budget by $1,014,000. What that means is at this point, we should be about 66% expended. We've only expended 62%, and we have 38% remaining for the remainder of the fiscal year. As far as breakdown of where our money's gone, 85% of our total expenditures have gone to personnel, followed by 7% to operations, 5% to communication, and 3% for managerial. And onto that cash position, year over year, we ended the month with 18.1 million compared to 14.68 last year the same time. A lot of that was budget savings last year, as well as that large ARPA disbursement that we saw at the first part of this year. Other assets decreased slightly from 25.6 to 25.2 million. That's really a function of our annual depreciation on our assets. And then our total liabilities increased from 32.6 to 32.9, and the main driver of that is that pension liability that gets recorded at year end based on the actuarial.
Dave, on the prior slide, percentage of expenses year to date, in the bottom window, explain those numbers.
Yeah, so that's, I say a statewide look at averages. That's a pretty safe bet now with our client base. And that's what about the average fire district spend is amongst our client base. So that accounts for, well, as of the time of this slide, 25 fire districts across Arizona. As you can see, we're a little bit higher on personnel, but we're also lower on the other expenditure items for the most part. And so that's what we're seeing there.
Got it, thank you. Anything else?
Nope, if there's no questions, that concludes the report for February.
Great, for Gabe. Okay, then I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve the February 2024 finance report as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? The finance report for February 2024 is approved. Thank you very much.
Awesome, thank you guys, appreciate it.
Okay. At this point in time, the next item on the agenda is to go into executive session. Possible vote to go into executive session for personnel matters pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A1 and legal advice pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A3 in reference to second quarter evaluation of the fire chief's performance. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Yeah, I got three.
Yeah. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are now in executive session.
Chief Coyle, we're back.
Okay, are we ready over there? Ready on the?
Ready to roll.
Okay, we're back in open session. As a result of coming from executive session, it was a very enlightening and very informative presentation to the board from Chief Mazulis on the strategic plan. With that said, Chief, I think it is in agreement from all of us that the format that you provided us, that we agree on that. So continue forward with that, utilizing the example community that you did identify that would be most likely to fall into place with our plan, your plan, the district plan. And then
we'd be doing that by consensus.
yeah, by consensus, unless there is any opposition, by consensus, we'll go with that plan as presented. Also, by consensus, format in which we present it, or you present it to the board at a quarterly board meeting, whereas you do your presentation so that the public can view it, and then we would fall into executive session and rate your performance for your performance evaluation at that time, and then come back in. So we'll do some fine tuning as we go through this, because it is a new process with this collaborative effort for your performance evaluation versus just an annual one-time report. Okay, I think we're all in agreement with that. Mm-hmm. Okay, with that said, let us move forward on the agenda. Public forum, do we have any speakers? None? Okay. That leads us to the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, we have three items. February 13th, 2024 special workshop minutes, February 20th, 2024 regular meeting minutes and the February 2024 executive session minutes. From that, I'd like to pull the February 13th, 2024 special workshop minutes from the consent agenda. There is some language that needs to be corrected or modified. So with that said, the consent agenda would include just the two February 20th regular meeting minutes and the February 2024 executive session minutes. Do I have a second?
I have a second.
Okay, and do I have any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. And by the way, that was to table those February 13th minutes to the next board meeting. Okay, the financial report was already presented and approved. Next item on the agenda is staff items. Chief, that is the fire chief's report.
Yes, I'm waiting for the slides to slow down.
Sorry. Sorry.
And then the 3-year-old highlighter thing.
Also,
Oh.
thank you to Josh, was it Josh, who put the slides up on that screen, so we didn't have to break our necks.
That's nice.
We'll start with Heidi Robinson.
Okay.
For the first bullet point, you guys already covered all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So the only things that we have on there to really talk about, and in the interest of brevity, annual award celebration. Kim put together a great program. The weather did not cooperate, but it didn't seem like it hampered anyone's enjoyment. So we have on the dashboard that that's been cycling through, but not today, for you, has our award recipients on there and some great photos from the event, so that those who couldn't make it, those who are on shift, can see the celebration and hopefully join next year. And then, of course, you all were at the St. Patrick's Day Parade and saw again what another great event that is for the city, and that collaboration with the city and the community. And I see even some of the northern neighbors came down to Sedona that day. So great events. We're excited to continue those with CRR, planning a lot of those events and working with Kim for the ones that are board-centric and that are employee-centric. And so with that, I will just pass the torch on to the next presentation unless you have any questions about upcoming things that I can answer.
Yeah, that's, I do have one thing, and that is, do we have the ability to put things coming up? For example, for the month of April, do we have any events that maybe we might want to bring to the attention of the board?
So if we do know about them, we try to get those in here so that if we know that, say, like in years past, so if we're doing the chili cook-off that's happening and we're going to be there and we want to bring it not only to the public's attention but to the board's attention, then we'll put that in there.
Okay.
We are talking about a little bit of a change up in order and collaboration and collective items for the board report, and so that might be in effect next month. And at that point, we'll kind of
I'll do my best. I don't want to inundate you with all the stuff, but I'll attempt to filter based on what I believe might pique your interest, and a lot of that will be related to city functions. And then I've got that report, so I'll include it in my monthly. This is what's happening.
Thank you.
Okay. Who's next up? Chief Coyle, are you there? You are on deck.
I'm here and ready to go. So we'll roll through it. The first thing, contracts and our other legal activities are all on track. There's nothing outstanding at this time. And when any of those issues get to a point where we need to make the board aware in greater detail, we will most certainly do that. Job descriptions. The final job descriptions are with the labor groups for review. They have until tomorrow to submit any feedback. To date, we have one minor change that was identified, and then they will go to the chief for signatures. Each one of the incumbents will get a copy of their job description, something to sign that says, I've read it and that's my job. And then they will go to Chief Baker for inclusion into Lexapol. The compensation study, we have all of the comparator agencies' information. As I stated before, right now they're in the process of comparing job descriptions. Work is done to work is done, because titles can be misleading in job descriptions and in compensation studies. Telecommunications, couple highlights. Justin passed his FCC general radio operator license test, which is a big benchmark. And he is getting ready to take on some additional training on consoles, and concurrent with that, working on some microwave stuff with Bob. So while they're fixing things that are broke and helping to prevent things from breaking, he's also enhancing that skill set and taking a little bit of that load off of Bob. It's kind of, I talk about the HR part, but I'll just hit it here as well. We had one interview of another radio tech for the position that was vacant, and well, that is vacant. And then we have another one that we may schedule an interview with. And so the individual that we did interview will go on to a second interview and come to Sedona, do some hands-on stuff, and then we will see if that's a good fit or not, and make a decision based on the outcome of that assessment. Also conducted some training with Josh on microwave equipment. And really, Josh, you do microwave stuff too? I don't know if he's there, but anyways. And upcoming for next month, the issues are, well, Bob actually put repairing 561's radio, which he was able to do today, and then addressing some power issues at Station 4, preparing some of PD's consoles, and managing, means working with DPS to make sure they only take down their stuff, the Porcupine Mountain antenna relocation project. Regarding human resources and recruitment, talked about the radio techs, and we're about ready to launch the firefighter annual hiring. The NTN announcement, which is the website that we use to gather basic data, and to basically, we use them primarily because they have a far reach when it comes to advertising. So that will be on the NTN site from April 1st until June 16th. Kiona is also working on UKG Ready onboarding module, which is a part of their HR components that allows her to streamline the onboarding process and offboarding process as well, to make sure that everything that needs to be done is done. And when you have different retirement systems, and like us and PSPRS, where you have multiple different tiers of different retirement systems, having a automated process to guide you with checks is important. We've also received all 4 of the different health benefits packages, and under the guidance of Chief Mazulis, we'll be evaluating those. I think the last thing was to select the top 2 and then put a deeper dive into those to move forward. It's it's a challenge comparing things, and then people want to bring you in with a teaser rate, and so you have to look beyond what's on that initial piece of paper to the lowest number. Let's just put it that way. The behavioral health regional grant has been submitted with Sedona, SFD, AFMA, and 11 other fire districts. The grant would help with the costs of some of the legislatively mandated requirements under the Tiger Act, and also some positive coaching and resilience training that would help improve and reduce the likelihood that folks would get in a position where they needed to utilize the Tiger Act. Regarding operations, there's a couple main things that well, not just operations, but operational framework. So this job description thing, one of the pieces that it brought to light that I think was really useful is we're identifying everybody's swim lanes, is what they call it, but making sure work didn't cross back and forth between people, trying to make the organization as effective as possible, help people to stay in their lanes by making sure that they have clear understanding of what their lanes are, because you could have the most competent people ever. Well, it'd be like the basketball team, right? Put a bunch of all-stars out there in the field, but people are trying to do somebody else's job, or they're jumping over people to get things done. They can be well-intentioned, but it's not effective. So part of looking through the job was looking at the number of people that you supervise and the number of people that you are supervised by. Well, bless his heart. Well, Chief Mazulis there, had 6 that he was supervising and 5 he was supervised by. Not to say the 5 of y'all are ever any work, but that is something that comes into consideration. So looking at that and some other things and that swim lane stuff, Bob Moats will be reporting to Chief Lukowski. So that will put all of the technical stuff, if you will, from GIS to fleet to telecommunications under Chief Lukowski. Heidi will be reporting to me along with HR manager and all the battalion chiefs. So that structural change will reduce Chief Missoula. Since we can't do anything about having him have 5 people to report to, best we could do is reduce the number of people that report to him by 1. So that's what we did, and I'm looking forward to that. That'll also be effective April 1st. We've had some transition meetings already to make sure we have clear flow. Everybody that is impacted by this is in the loop. It's reflected in the new job descriptions and the org chart that went to the people doing our compensation study. The other operational components that I want to highlight was just the, I can't think of a better way to say this, but 3 brand new BCs, I don't know if they're still brand new, 3 newer BCs working together to not only identify problems, but to allow their captains to bring information forward about mentoring and leadership that is going to help guide our non-technical training. So not just competencies and the tasks that we take care of in the fire ground, but competencies and all those tasks that are necessary to make an effective team. And so through that information exchange and that feedback loop, it's going to be something that's going to involve probably everybody that has chief somewhere in their title, but excited about where that's going and excited about the feedback that we've received so far. I'll just end it right there because I know you guys have had a long day. End of report.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate that. Any questions for Chief Coyle?
No.
Okay, thank you. Next up. Yeah, community risk reduction.
Yeah.
Good.
There is a lot on the slide. We had a lot going on in the last month. So the top notable event I'll cover last. We did implement the mobile food vendor sticker in conjunction with the state fire marshal as well as the Arizona Fire Marshals Association. And what that does is a standardized inspection across the state and for all mobile food prep vehicles. So food trucks, food trailers, and they go into the state database. So when people see these stickers that are on the windows, they know that they've been inspected by a fire marshal and have a permit and are safe to be doing business as a food truck. Now, this was the first one that we issued about 2 weeks ago, so not all of them have them yet, but as we continue to go to events and register food trucks, you'll start seeing these more and more as we go through them.
Does that mean that if they have that sticker, like on a restaurant, it's a grade A, grade B, grade C, is there rating in that at all?
The health department might, but this is more for, they've been inspected for a fire inspection. So the kitchen hood that's inside of the truck has been serviced in the last 6 months to a year, depending on and all the life safety features that go inside of it.
Gotcha, thank you.
Fire Inspector Riddell and firefighter Seth Gaylord completed the car seat safety technician course at the beginning of February. So now we're up to 5 technicians. I've got myself and Inspector Russell to attend to close out CRR, but we've both been on different committees and trainings also. So staff is continuing to see more people come in for car seats, especially with spring training or spring break, vacation season. We have grandparents coming in that grandkids are, visiting and out of town or rental car spaces. Their parents want to make sure that they are put in correctly. I recently attended the Fire Life Safety Educator course, which was a week-long class on developing community risk reduction programs. And the next class, the final one, will be Fire Life Safety Educator 3, which is implementation, grants, and writing for those programs. Firefighter Dietrich attended the Community Risk Reduction Through Characterization Conference in Nevada, or Bullhead City. And from that, she's also now attending the last meetings and will be participating in the spring show as well as the fall, most likely, as we continue to grow our presence in the Verde Valley Laughs program. We've been meeting about every other month, every 3 months with the Airport Authority and Sedona Police Department, other cooperators for emergency planning. So they've been working on an NFPA compliant and FAA compliant emergency response plan for the airport itself. The next one, I believe, is a tabletop with what they have come up with so far. Upcoming events, and I know we just kind of talked about that a little bit, and I try to make sure that I'm putting events that the fire department or fire district will be involved with. So this is another place that will be on there, but we're also coordinating a lot more closely with the city and city parks and recs for the events that are also coming up in the community. So working with Chief Mazulis and creating, those events that you guys might be interested in. I can also add those to this slide or just create another slide with upcoming events. So March 23rd, next week, I'll be heading up to Reno for the International Association of Fire Chiefs Wildland Urban Interface Conference, which goes into not only the suppression component of it, but also the code enforcement, code standards, building materials pieces as well. And the date on the La Barranca is actually April 6th. I had a typo on this one. So La Barranca 2 recently became a Firewise community in this last fall. So Lisa Hawley, who's leading that up, is hosting an event out at their area with Department of Forestry and Fire Management, us, as well as National Forest Service. I believe she's been working with POWIC a little bit on this as well. May 4th is going to be the National Community Wildfire Preparedness Days. In conjunction with that, we have -1 confirmation. Our annual cleanup days are going to be April, the weekend prior. I've lost the slide, my slide notes. April 27th and 28th out in the village of Oak Creek, and then April 4th and 5th at Posse Grounds or somewhere in the vicinity of Posse Grounds again. All right, so back to the top of the notable events. As many of you have heard, we had a fatal fire this past week in Sunset Mobile Home Park, where a resident was extracted and then later pronounced deceased at the hospital. You can see in the pictures here, we've got fire investigators from the region as well as police department detectives, and then on the right-hand side, we've got our ATF K9 Zeta and handler and investigator Dave Ziering from Gilbert Fire. We want to go to the next slide, Heidi. Of note in this fire during the investigation, granted it was the area of origin was found to be in the living room. Because of the destruction of the fire, the exact cause is still undetermined, and it's going to, it will remain undetermined. That being said, we did have some contributing factors that we found in the vicinity of the area of origin, which we believe have a direct impact on this, was misuse of electrical power strips and combustible materials in that vicinity. The other factor in the incident was that there were no smoke alarms in the home. Over. In a recent NFPA study, on average, there's been 32,000 home fires involving electrical distribution and lighting, and killed an average of 430 civilians. Of those, approximately 41% were contributed to extension cords and plugs being misused. And 2 out of every 5 or 40% killed in these fires were at least 65 years or older, and people of 85 or older had the highest death in these populations as well. Due to mobility issues, as well as typically living in older homes, they don't have the amount of outlets that they would require to be in today's lifestyle. So these outlets are usually over capacity, which means that they're pulling more heat through them and the wiring can't support it. In this instance, the power strip was found behind a couch, which potentially had a blanket Again, things were melted together, but we were able to find these and identify that there were appliances also plugged into those power strips. The other side of working smoke alarms. You increase your chances of survival with over 50% by having operable smoke alarms in your sleeping areas and just outside of them. Most of the senior citizens, older adults that we have in our community are hard of hearing, deaf, or visually impaired. There are devices that are out there that are actually bed shakers that are activated by the noise of the alarm and also have a strobe with them. So there are options out there. Some other items to make sure if you're unable to get out of your room, as this case, the fire was extreme in front of the door, she was not able to get out her normal passive exit. The door was found partially closed, which kept the fire out, but it did not keep the smoke out. So it's recommended to try to get your door closed all the way and prevent, and put towels, things of that, and cracks to prevent smoke from entering the room as well as fire. Let 911 know where you are in the room and put something bright in your windows. And again, can't emphasize enough having operable smoke alarms at a minimum inside of all sleeping areas and just outside of it and on every level of your home. And extension cords, power strips are temporary. If you find yourself using a lot of power strips, power cords, we highly recommend employing a licensed electrician to come out and do an assessment and add additional wiring properly to make sure that you have the additional electrical resources that you need in your home. That is, as a follow-up with the fire, we have reached out to a Red Cross as well as Burn Foundation and the community in trying to schedule a smoke alarm walk in the park itself. As we were doing the investigation and monitoring it, we had a lot of the residents there saying that they didn't have smoke alarms or they were beeping, so they ripped them out, which is common. I would say most of us probably have a smoke alarm in our house that's beeped or, batteries haven't been changed. So again, just reinforces how important these really are, and the survivability goes up as you continue to maintain them in your homes.
Question I have for you, what have we done as a district in informing the community of the importance of smoke detectors? Is there a need to do the walkthrough at that particular park, where the mobile home park, where that mobile home was, to see if, in fact, this is maybe more a common problem than not? How many mobile home parks do we have in the city that is, do we have a count on that? I mean, just things to be a little bit more proactive than have to be reactive. So, like I said, I guess my big question though is, has there been some sort of announcement to the community as far as the need and importance of fire smoke detectors?
In the past, we've tried to reinforce it through social media, but as far as a smoke alarm campaign, since I've been here, there hasn't been one. Been working today with Chief Coyle, Chief Mazulis, on getting the final press release out to the newspaper and social media, all the media outlets in general, with the findings of the investigation, the lessons learned, and then also the messaging of how important smoke alarms really are, as well as just kind of what a lot of other CRR divisions call home safe home. So slips, trips, falls, and common fire hazards in the home that are easily addressed to make your home safer.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
All right, I believe I adequately covered what Buzz has been working on over the past month. But, oh, well, hold on a second. What is that picture right there? First day of what?
Didn't need it.
Those letters of the conference, AW.
Oh, yeah, that's the conference. So, yes, unless there's any questions on EMS and operational support, we'll move to the next slide.
Done.
All right, Mr. Chair, Board, good evening. Real quick on training for the last month. We just completed our quarterly MCS evaluations this morning. So again, going around to all 15 companies with a known minimum company standard that was released to everybody a month prior, so they had proper time to prepare and train. And having the training go out with the battalion chief to each of the 15 companies and evaluate their proficiency in the skills that they were tasked with according to our established MCSs. So happy to report that all companies did really well. Times are compressing amongst all companies, which is a good sign that training is getting standardized and efficiency and proficiency are increasing amongst all companies. So it was a good sign. We'll be releasing all those times tomorrow so all the companies can view where they stand accordingly on their shifts and stations, but everybody performed well. The bottom two left pictures of that slide, you can see we got to interface with some of our public during that time as our training grounds are quickly shrinking with the growth of Sedona. We've identified, working with West Sedona School, that between 10 and 2 o'clock at West Sedona School works for them and works for us to go out and train. So we've been trying to work with our neighbors and still have adequate training grounds for our crews to go out and perform these tasks. But at this specific event, we had some youngsters out there that were watching us train, so the crew stopped and took an opportunity to interface with them and let them help pack up some hose and get in the fire truck. And crews did a great job interfacing with them, and I think made a good impact for some of our future firefighters, hopefully. So we'll continue with the quarterly MCSs again this summer, and continue working on standardizing the training and minimum company standard proficiency moving forward. I think I mentioned last board meeting that firefighter Dietrich was attending the first annual women's conference for fire service leaders in Gilbert. I got good feedback from her and actually asked her and with Chief Mazulis's approval to do a quick presentation to the governing board next meeting. She was excited for that opportunity, and I thought it would be more beneficial for her presenting the information that she learned and gathered than it was for me to do it. So she's agreed. Chief Mazulis was in agreement, so we'll work on that for next board meeting, a short 5 to 10 minute presentation of what she learned from that, what she's able to bring back as far as recruitment and retention of female firefighters for the fire service and specifically Sedona Fire. So looking forward to that. We were able to send 3 of our extrication instructors to Corona, California, where they were able to train on some advanced extrication techniques. You can see I believe they said it was a $180,000 Mercedes in that picture on the slide there that they were able to cut up and learn some new tactics with some of the new technology that's coming out on the road now, including some electric vehicle concerns that we have when it comes to extrication. So again, a beneficial training. The only cost to Sedona Fire was the travel and food while they were out there. The class is paid for. So it's an excellent training opportunity for our instructors, and then get to bring that back like they did to the new hire orientation, and then our annual extrication training that we started this January, where A shift got to go through, B shift will go through next year. So valuable skills and information learned that's getting directly applied here at Sedona Fire, so extremely beneficial. Working with Chief Lakowski as a blue card instructor, and recently Lewis to blue card instructor training in Phoenix. We'll be rolling out our quarterly blue card, so our incident size up and basically how to run the incident, if you will, training to all companies. Rotate every company through and give each company in the district an opportunity to go through tactical simulations with us, and provide some guidance and training recommendations moving forward, just so we can standardize process moving forward, regardless of what station or what shift you're working on. So looking forward to that and get that ball rolling, and again, make that a standardized training moving forward. Some future opportunities in here for training. We do have a regional training coming up for assailant training in Cottonwood. Still working on a date into a couple little hiccups. but I believe we're targeting, April 27th now. So that'll be held in Cottonwood. That'll be a collaboration between all the agencies in the area, fire and, law enforcement. And the idea is to run 3 simulations where hopefully we can get 3 new incident commanders in those positions to run the incident, check our system, see what our capacity is in handling an incident like this and where some of our shortcomings are and be able to identify those in future training. So hopefully we'll get that, more formalized and the date and time solidified here this next week. For the first time in my 23 years here, we've got the venomous reptile awareness training. So as you know, we're a lot of times during the spring and summer months asked to come out and remove rattlesnakes specifically from homes and areas close to the home. We found an agency, I believe Chief Mazulis identified that agency last year or the year before. Maybe during COVID that got stymied a little bit, but we've coordinated with them. So on April 29th, we'll be running our trainers, internal folks, 2 from each shift, plus Captain Rodriguez, through the initial training with this organization. And then we'll provide the training on 3 separate days for each shift to rotate crews through, hold 2 trainings each day. So each company will have an opportunity to come in and identify some watch out situations for us, making sure we're not removing reptiles that we shouldn't be, that are endangered, and get ourselves in hot water, and also the proper techniques for removing and relocating those reptiles as well. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's an interactive training, so I'll let your imagination run wild with that one.
You go first.
Yeah. So really excited for that opportunity and be able to provide that for our employees, just to keep everybody safe and the district safe as well. Additionally, future opportunities, the past opportunity we had, we took part of, we were at the career fair at the Sedona Red Rock High School on March 1st. So we had Matt Spinelli, Kirk Rydell, firefighter Combs, and firefighter Tavritsky went up and set up shop at the Sedona Red Rock High School, and we're able to interface with 450 students during that career fair and educate them on all aspects of Sedona Fire, not just firefighting. So CRR, IT, GIS, some administrative responsibilities and roles and jobs we have here offered. So great feedback from them. And again, being able to interface with 450 potential firefighter employees of the Sedona Fire District is a step in the right direction, and we're getting more and more involved with that, with 2 possible opportunities coming up, one in Flagstaff that Heidi sent me about 3 weeks ago. I finally got an email back from them, and then another one Chief Mazulis just sent me that's over in Prescott. So hopefully we'll be able to take opportunities and participate in each of those. And great timing with the hiring announcement coming out in April. So hopefully we'll see an increase of applicants applying. Moving on to wellness, one thing I haven't really touched on since I've been in my position is that I am in charge of the wellness program here and the budget. Firefighter Feeney is our program manager with that. So what we started doing and have been doing since July when I took over is putting out a quarterly wellness newsletter to all employees on just some basic awareness watch outs, if you will, for potential injuries that can occur, preventative measures to take to hopefully decrease those injuries, and some resources available for staff to identify and correct any weaknesses they may have, injuries or past injuries that are still bothering them. So good feedback on that so far. We're continuing to try to bolster that program with the hopes that, you know, we get a few of these programs up and running. Been making a conscientious effort to get out to crews and ask them, hey, how can we reduce on-the-job injuries? What can we do? We brought a risk management specialist, Chief Mazulis, and I met with him along with Kiona on some of our hike-out injuries and some recommendations they have on how to reduce that. So the hope is with more of these programs in place and more of the education, eventually reducing the number of on-the-job injuries, increasing employees' health and wellness, and eventually